Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving deep into money and banking. We're going to use the ideas of economist Ludwig von Mises to figure out what money really is and where it actually comes from. And trust me, it's probably going to change the way you look at your bank account forever.
So let's just kick things off with a question that gets right to the point. You open your banking app, you see you've got $1,000 in your checking account. Great, you can spend it, you can move it around. But is that $1,000 of actual physical cash sitting in a bank vault somewhere with your name on it? Well, the answer is a lot more interesting than you might think. To figure that out, we really have to go back to square one and build our way up. So let's start with section one. What actually is real money? We're talking about the absolute foundation of how we exchange things. You know, in the very beginning, money was what Mises calls commodity money. Gold is the perfect example. People valued gold not just because they could trade it, but because you could actually use it for other things, right? Like jewelry or even in dentistry. It's that usefulness, that intrinsic value, that made everyone trust it enough to use it for trade. Obviously, walking around with a pouch full of gold coins is, well, it's not exactly convenient. And that very practical problem led to the next big step in the story of money, moving from physical gold to paper claims on that gold. This brings us to section two and the idea of the money substitute. So a money substitute is basically just an IOU for the real thing. I love this analogy. Think of it like a coat check ticket. The ticket isn't your coat, right? But you trust that you can hand over that ticket and get your actual coat back anytime you want. That's exactly what an old US dollar bill was. It was a claim, a promise for a certain amount of gold. And people treated that piece of paper as if it was the gold. And this leads to a really important idea Mises had: money in the broader sense. This is the total amount of the real stuff, the commodity money like gold, plus all those paper claims, those money substitutes that are floating around. Now, this is so important because it means the amount of money being used in an economy can be way, way bigger than the physical gold sitting in the vault. This diagram here really helps see how it all fits together. You've got money in a broader sense up at the top, and that's made up of two things. The actual money in a narrower sense, that's our gold, and then the money substitutes, which are those paper claims we just talked about. We're going to fill in the rest of this chart as we go. So, what happens when that paper claim is no longer tied to something physical? What if you can't redeem it for gold anymore? Well, this is where governments get involved, and the entire nature of money changes completely. And that brings us to fiat money. This is the kind of money that pretty much all of us use every single day. It has value simply because the government says it has value. That's it. Think about the US dollar. You haven't been able to trade it in for gold since 1971. Its value doesn't come from a pile of metal in a vault. It comes from our collective trust and, well, the law. This chart just nails the difference, doesn't it? With commodity money, the value comes from the stuff itself. And hey, if you can find more gold, you can increase the money supply. But with fiat money, the value is just a legal declaration, and only the government has the power to create more of it. It's a complete shift in who's in control. All right, now we get to the part of the story that can really bend your mind a little bit: how modern banks literally create money. And we're not talking about government printing presses here. We're talking about something called fractional reserve banking. First, let's go back to that simple, safe idea. Mises called it a money certificate. This is our original coat check ticket. You give the clerk one coat, you get one ticket. There's one coat held in the back for every single ticket out there. It's a perfect one-to-one claim. Super simple. But what if the coat check clerk realizes, hey, this person probably won't be back for their coat till midnight. I could lend it to someone else for a couple of hours and make a little extra cash. That is fiduciary media. It's a money substitute, a claim, a ticket that is not fully backed by the real thing. The bank, or our clerk, has issued more claims than it has actual money, or coats. Okay, let's pop back to our diagram again. See? Now we can fill in those blank spaces. Underneath money substitutes, you see it split into two types: the fully backed money certificates and the unbacked fiduciary media. And it's from that second one, fiduciary media, that new money is created out of thin air. So how does this actually work day to day? Let's just walk through a really simple example. Okay, step one. Harry goes to the bank and deposits $1,000 cash. Now, the bank doesn't just lock that money away. Legally, it only has to keep a small fraction of it, say 10%, which is $100. That's its reserve. And that brings us to step three. It takes the other $900 and loans it out to sell. And boom, just like that, new money has appeared. Think about it. Harry still sees $1,000 in his account.
That's a claim he can spend whenever he wants. But now, Sally also has $900 in cash that she can go spend. That original $1,000 bill now supports $1,900 of spending power in the economy. It was literally created from a loan.
Okay, so if a bank can just magically create money by making loans, what's to stop it from just printing money forever? Well, in a really competitive market, there's actually a pretty powerful natural break on this whole process. Let's see how it works with the story of Bank C. So let's imagine Bank C gets a little ambitious, a little greedy. It decides, you know what, we're going to create $2 billion in new money. And it does this just by crediting its customers' accounts with new loans. From the customer's perspective, this is amazing. Their bank balances just doubled overnight. So, what's the first thing you do when you have a bunch of new money? You spend it. So, Bank C's customers are out there swiping their debit cards, writing checks, buying things from businesses all over the place. And of course, most of those businesses bank with someone else. Bank A, Bank B, you name it.
So at the end of the business day, all those other banks, Bank A and Bank B, are holding a huge pile of checks and transaction records from Bank C's customers. They go to Bank C and say, all right, your customer spent all this money with us. Time to settle up. We need the real cash to back up these claims. And this is where the whole thing comes crashing down for Bank C. It created $2 billion in claims, but it only has $1 billion in actual cash reserves. When the other banks come knocking, it owes way more cash than it actually has. That competition, that need to settle up between banks, acts as a powerful brake and pushes the reckless Bank C right to the edge of collapse. I know, we've gone through a lot of technical terms, fiduciary media, money in the broader sense. So, why does any of this matter to you and me? Well, Section 6 is where we put it all together. This stuff is key to understanding why our economy goes through massive booms and then painful busts. Here's the bottom line. All these concepts are the puzzle pieces that Mises used to explain the business cycle. He argued that this thing called credit expansion, the creation of all that unbacked money, is what fuels these artificial economic booms. It makes it seem like we have way more resources to invest and build than we actually do. But because this new money isn't based on real savings, that boom can't last. And in his view, it has to eventually lead to a bust. And that leaves us with one last really big question. We just saw how competition in a free market keeps a single reckless bank in check. But what happens when a central authority, like a central bank, steps in and basically removes that check and encourages all the banks to expand credit all at the same time? What does that do to the stability of the entire system? That's something to think about.